Here we go with another workaround. You might be saying to yourself, paper piecing, we've already done that. Yes, but let's take a look at this. Would you rather have 8 precision cut pieces with a bias edge on each side, or just 4 straight cut pieces cut any way you want? I'm going for paper piecing. Following directions in your workbook, you want to make sure that you print 2 sheets and then test first. The square that prints out must be 1 inch square. After you've tested out for size, roughly trim your foundation pieces apart, just like that. And we'll be setting those aside and getting ready to start. So now we're ready to start. We have our foundations cut out. There should be 4 of them altogether. And we should have 4 sets of 4 different fabrics, cut 1 3/4 inches by 5 inches. And we'll be ready to stitch. Now I want to talk to you about some pitfalls. You might feel real comfortable because you've done this before, and you know how you lay one strip on top of the other, and then you stitch them together on the first line. Well, if you try doing it that way without heeding my instructions, this is what's going to happen. The piece is going to be too short. Instead, you need to lay the next piece so that it steps down just like the foundation piece does. By doing it that way, you're sure that you have full coverage from top to bottom. Keep this in mind as you lay your strips down to gradually go up or down depending on how the foundation piece is shaped. Let's start stitching. I'm using the lightweight stabilizer from Marathon Thread. That's what I've done my printing of my foundation pieces on. I'm laying my first strip down on that stabilizer, and you can see how easy it is to see through it to make sure that that piece is going over the first line 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to put the second piece down on top of that, face down, and I'm going to flip it over and stitch. After stitching, I flip it over and see if anything needs to be trimmed away. And because these pieces are starched, I really don't need to go to the ironing board. I can just go ahead and finger press the pieces quite easily. Now I'm ready for the next piece. Now, this one is very critical. All the pieces we want to stitch from solid line to solid line. This, however, you want to make sure that you start out and you backtrack. You go up to the solid line and you backspace again. And the reason for that is we have no line of stitching going over that stitching. So we have to make sure that it is very secure. So we're going to finger press again and put down our last strip. So you can see these segments go very, very quickly. It's a lot easier than having to use 8 bias edge pieces to make the same segment. That's why I chose the paper piecing for you versus regular piecing. We'll get into something a little harder later. I want to emphasize one more time, you need to lock stitch at the beginning and end of the center line of stitches. So now we have 4 segments done, and we're ready to put our star together. Excuse me. And this is the way it will line up. So we're going to fold one half on top of the other, and we're going to stitch along this line of stitching. And we're going to do that on each of the 2 sections. We'll stitch from the solid line to the solid line. Do not go past the solid line. So back at the machine, we're going to start stitching, and notice I'm going a back stitch when I start out and when I finish up. Again, there will be no seams going over top of these stitching lines, so you want to make sure that they're secure. Open it up, you've got a perfect match. Turn it over to the back side, and what we're going to do is press those seams flat instead of to one side. That'll reduce the bulk in the center of the star block. Once you have both halves put together, it's now ready to put together the entire star. After you have the seams pressed open from the 2 halves, we're going to match up those center seams. We're going to back stitch at the beginning of the stitching and at the end of the stitching. This is very important. Normally we don't back stitch in piecing or paper piecing, but we have something else coming up at the end of this star block that requires that we do this. So just follow my lead. Now that that line of stitching is done, our entire star is complete. Again, we're going to go to the pressing surface, and we're going to press this seam open as well. So we have the star block completed, and our next task is coming up. So get yourself a nice cup of tea and relax, because now we're going to work on those dreaded Y seams to fill in the rest of this block. Oh, and when you're sipping on your tea, now's the time to remove the foundation backing. Now we're going to throw away your fears and just take this a step at a time. First, fold your star block in half along the seam line. Now that wasn't hard, was it? Now reach up and pull the top layer by the star point and pull it straight down. It'll form a triangle when you do that, and it'll also open to where your stitching line stopped. Look how nicely your triangle piece fits on the triangle you just made by doing that fold. Now we're going to stitch from the top edge all the way down to where the seams intersect underneath that piece. Then we're going to pin the other side on the loose flap that just was pulled down to start this process. So let's take it from there. We have the one side stitched, we have the other side pinned. Now we're going to flip that upside down. Let me show you that one more time, and then we'll flip it around. Let's do it one more time. That's where we started out. We're going to pull that point down to the opposite side, and then just turn your star around. just like that. Now we're going to stitch this side down, starting where we left off at the point and then stitching off the end. And there you have a perfectly inset seam. Y seams aren't that tough, are they? You can do this. So go ahead and do the 4 triangles. Next, we'll do the squares when you're done with that. Now let's fold that star block in half again, right sides together. And this time we want to make sure that the square edges are lined up. After you're assured that they're lined up, gently pull the triangle straight down. And you'll know you have it right when you form an X, just like this. Pin one side of your square along one of the edges that you just pulled down, just like this. Stop where the seams intersect underneath. This is treated just like how you just did the triangles. You're going to stitch one side down, then you're going to flip it, pin the other side in place, and stitch that side. And when you're done, you'll have a perfectly inset square. That wasn't very hard at all. I knew you could do it. Now let's stitch that out. Okay, now we're at the machine. We've got our block folded in half. We pull down to form the X, just like I told you. We've got a straight edge here. You can see that our seam allowance is sticking out. You can tell that by the dog ears. Now we're going to put our square block down along the edge. And we're going to pin it in place so that we stop right at that seam line. So we're just going to put a little pin there and go ahead and stitch it down. Again, remember, we're going to do lock stitches when we get down to the stuffing place. Okay, one half done. Now we're just going to swing that block around until the edges meet the other side of the square. Just like that. We're going to place it down. And if you feel like you need to pin it, go ahead. We've got that perfect square. We're going to start right where we left off. Again, we're going to lock those stitches in place and stitch off the end. And there you have it, one perfectly stitched inset or Y-seam square. Now just do the other 3 and your block will be complete. The only thing left to do is square it up and enjoy. I'm hoping this lesson has taken away the myth that Y seams are to be avoided at all costs. You did good.